It's Matt again from MDW Guitar Works, and you find me again here in the mobile office. Yep, my neighbor. And this weekend's project is not a huge building project, but it, I guess, could be considered a kind of involved project. Invasive, I should say, maybe. Like if you were having surgery and said, well, you can live with just one kidney, you would consider that a major talk with your doctor, you know. So I'm replacing the headstock on my upright bass, my slimline upright electric bass, and it's the one that I built out of the bed frame for an old waterbed that I scavenged from somewhere. Wasn't my bed, but I found the wood and I used it. Just a big old nasty pine plank, really, but I shaped it up, put a new piece of wood for the fretboard. It's a fretless instrument, but I still call it a fretboard because, well, fingerboard isn't exactly what you, I don't know, fretboard. But so the headstock didn't have enough of a back angle, so it wasn't putting tension on the strings right, and I think that was making the tuners work a little too hard, and I had to contrive a string tree type of thing to keep the strings at the right angle so they didn't pop out of the nut and all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly things. And so I thought I had it working, but it ended up stripping out the button on one of the tuners, and it was going to be the first time that my bass player in the band was going to play it out live at a gig, and he couldn't play it because, well, he couldn't tune that A string. So that's a problem. So ended up taking it home with me and experimenting with the tuner, and there were just some crappy tuners that I scavenged off of some piece of junk bass neck that I had laying around, and the simple solutions weren't working. I'm still going to try a little bit of Loctite on it to see if I can use the tuner elsewhere. Worst case scenario, I'm stuck with a partial set of bass tuners because the other three work okay, but no biggie. I'm just going to see if I can salvage it and use it somewhere else. But I've got some tuners off of another bass, my cigar box bass, that I'm going to scavenge off of it. I'm going to scavenge the tuners off of it and put it on this one because I know they're brand new and they're pretty decent. I mean, they're not like top shelf $150 set of tuners. They're just decent quality tuners from MGB Guitar Works, actually. Hey, Mike. Yeah. So that's what I'm gonna do. At this point, I've got the headstock chopped off. I took the tuners out and I cut it at an angle. Oh, hey, guy. So I cut a nice angle on there, and then I cut out a piece of wood that was shaped like a headstock. Basically did some nice measuring, which I think the shape that I came up with is better than what I had before, because it was sort of a, you know, afterthought when I first built it, and this is a little more carefully drawn out, a little more carefully cut to shape. And so at the point I am right now, I've got a nice angle, so there's a good hefty amount of wood for to be able to what do you call it, scab it onto or whatever. So I cut out the wood and I've got it setting up right now. I'm using epoxy. You know, some people might say there's better adhesives to use, but yeah, I mean, this epoxy is pretty good stuff as long as you've got a good surface to glue to. And in this case I do. Both pieces of wood are nice and porous. You know, it's a decent amount of scarf joint for it to go up against, and I've got it temporarily screwed in place. I just ran a 1.25 inch screw through it to just hold it in place while I'm letting the epoxy set. And so that's where I'm at right now. Um, when I get back, I'm going to check how the glue's set up. If it's still got any curing to do, I'll just let it. It's quick set epoxy, so should set up pretty quick. Hence the name. Although I've been disappointed in the past with epoxy. Don't do the hard hat trick from the old Crazy Glue commercial with that epoxy, because it will let you down when you least expect it. With that said, though, epoxy is pretty good 99% of the time. Just that 1% time, don't let it let you down. So what I'm going to do once that's set up, I'm going to even up the join where it goes to the neck, because there's a little bit of wood sticking out that needs to be cut down, and I'm going to shore up where it meets up so it looks a little bit neater. And then I'm going to place the holes for the tuners, drill out the holes for the tuners, and what else am I going to... I'm probably going to have to move the bridge a little bit, so that'll shorten the scale minutely, which is going to throw off Tim, because he's gotten used to the scale where it is now, and he's going to lose a couple inches, and he's going to have to relearn where all the position markers go. Sorry, Tim, but that's all right. It's living the rock and roll dream, man. So, speaking of which, it's March now, March 2nd today, Sunday, yeah, March 2nd, and that's officially the kickoff to green season for my band, since we're an Irish band, Drunken Shrubbery. Check us out, drunkenshrubbery.com. We're set with all of our Saint Paddy's Day weekend shows. We got 5 different places we're going to be playing, from Dunedin all the way down to Holmes Beach. That's near Bradenton. Bradenton? Yeah, Bradenton. And a couple places in between. So, busy weekend. I'll put a flyer up so you can see all of the places we are. So if you're nearby, or even if you're not nearby, hop a flight, come on in, it's worth seeing. Tell them you saw it here first. And yeah, make sure you tell the bar owners when you go in there, I flew down here from upstate New York and just to see these assholes. So yeah, tell me what they said. That's all right. We love our fans. Yay, Shrub Club. And so anyway, yep, we're getting ready for St. Paddy's Day weekend, and that'll be fun. I always like that. Kind of like it better than what we were booked for last year. Not that I disliked anything that we did last year, but some of the arrangements of the gigs was a little bit more hectic, I think. And this will be nice. We're pretty much the only day we've got multiple gigs is on actually St. Paddy's Day, which is a Monday. Like whoever approved that calendar arrangement needs to have a good stern talking to. But St. Paddy's Day is on a Monday this year. But we got 2 gigs, and they're both in the same general part of town. So, which is good because we only got an hour and a half between them. So we got to unpack and repack and hit the road, and it's also real close to where they're having spring training, and there's a game, so I'm sure parking's going to be more than fun. But so we're going to get down there. It's both 2 places that we love to play. Freckled Finn in Holmes Beach and Motorworks in Bradenton, and awesome places to play, both of them. So we're real lucky to have those gigs on the day of days. So I scheduled the week off from work the following week, so I don't care how much fun we have, I'm going to sleep up afterwards. But so anyway, back to the project at hand. Yeah, I'm going to draw out and drill the holes for the tuners, and what else? Probably going to do a little bit of sanding once it's closer to the exact finished shape. Knock off any sharp edges, things like that. And I'm going to make sure that the tuners all go in right, they're good and secure. Then I'll slap some paint on it, and that part of it will be good to go. That'll install the tuners. That won't take but a minute. And then I'm going to decide what I got to do to move the tailpiece, which is going to involve also moving the bridge a little bit, which is also going to involve rejiggering the little cover that I got on the front between the bridge and the pickup. I just cut that down a little bit so we can slide everything up, because one of the reasons that there was weird tension on the at the neck was that the tuners were like way too close to the nut, and that made the angle kind of funky. I think I had to even run the string around the tuner the wrong way just so it would stay in the nut, and I want to see if I can avoid that in the future. And we'll see, live and learn. Tuning mechanism placement is a little bit of a science, and I haven't mastered it entirely, so we'll see how it goes. So anyway, back to the shop, and you'll get to see what progress I've made. Okay, the first thing I had to do was try to fix the existing tuner, which was the source of the initial problem. That A string just kept slipping and wasn't going anywhere, and it was because the knob had come kind of stripped out from the shank, and so it was just spinning free after a certain point. And so I tried to fix that with a little bit of epoxy and a few other methods. I tried to hammer it down. I even tried some Loctite. None of that worked, so I'm gonna just have to throw that one away. And now I got a mismatched set of tuners, missing one. Fortunately, it's a pretty standard type of tuner. It's the type that goes on a Fender style bass, so I'll be able to use it somewhere else. So anyway, I decided I have to cut off the headstock and replace it. So I cut it at a nice angle to provide both an angle for the headstock to tilt back and to give as much surface area for the glue joint. And that's what I did. Then I sanded the joint to even it out and smooth it out, because I could only cut it so accurately with an old broken coping saw that I got from the flea market. And so it wasn't the most even cut, but ended up sanding that out a little bit with the belt sander and made it even-ish. So then I drew out the basic shape on some 1/2-inch plywood. Now in retrospect, I needed to go a little bit thicker than that. It could have stood to have something maybe at least an 1/8 inch thicker. I probably should have laminated something over the top so it was just a little bit stouter, because when I put the tuning mechanisms on there, it didn't screw all the way down flush to the surface of the headstock, which is not the biggest problem in the world, but it wasn't as neat as I'd like it to be, because when there's no tension on the tuners, they kind of rattle a little bit. When there's tension on there, they're fine. They're screwed securely on the back, but I'd prefer to have it tighter up against the surface. And so, live and learn. Headstocks need to be a little bit thicker than 1/2 inch. Let's see. Cut the headstock out roughly and then sanded it close to my line. Since I was using a jigsaw to cut it out, I did need to stay to the outside of my line and then sand it down so it was closer. Once again, Precision machinery would have made that a quicker job, but alas. um, so I attached the headstock and I temporarily screwed it in place, knowing that I was going to put a dowel in there, but just for purposes of letting the glue joint set, I put a screw in there. And then I used the belt sander to even up the joint at the neck, which was of course after I let the epoxy set. I used epoxy this time. Retrospect, that's not the best, or maybe the epoxy that I had was crap, because it set a little bit gummy, and I'm not sure what's up with that. There was a little bit of play left. Even after I put a dowel in, it was sliding around a little bit, and under tension it did kind of spring forward and broke that joint. So I had to go back in and try to clean out the joint as best as I could and put some wood glue in there and clamp it back down and let that set, and put a couple more screws in there temporarily, and it held just fine. So another lesson learned: don't trust epoxy unless you've got a better kind of epoxy than I had, which is the quick set that I got at Home Depot, which is garbage. Don't get that. Wood glue is stronger than that. Now, I remember the kind of epoxy that I've used before growing up at my dad's shop. That was serious junk, man. That was serious. It would like set something up and you'd never break it again. Well, this is not that stuff. So, regular old two-part quick set epoxy is garbage. Don't get it. Let's see. Remove the screw from the temporary joint and drill the hole for the dowel. And like I mentioned, it did give out somewhat. Not completely, but that dowel is providing all the strength at this point. And went back and had to glue it back up again. But so I drilled the holes for the tuners and sanded and stained the headstock. And if you notice, the positioning of the holes was kind of wonky. Did the best I could with the tools that I've got. Tried to center the holes with a small pilot bit and then use a bigger bit, and then ended up the biggest bit that I had before going to something way too big wasn't exactly the right size, so I ended up having to sand that, file that out so that the tuners would fit in, and the positioning was a little bit off, but did the best I could. When it's all together, it's not quite noticeable unless you're looking at it real close, but I'd prefer to get those positioned perfectly, which is hard to do without a drill press. And so let's see, drilled the holes and stained it. Then I installed the tuners, which I cannibalized off the cigar box space. And so it all went in with a little bit of struggling to ream out the holes and make them exactly fit. And let's see, I had to move the tailpiece and the bridge up about 1.5 inches, just so I would be able to use the strings that I had. That's the only reason I did. I use extra long scale strings, but by the time I've moved these several times and had to cut excess off the strings, I've lost a little bit of most of the lead, that, the thin part on the bass strings that goes around the tuners, and so I had to, it's a little bit touch and go to make sure that I positioned the tailpiece so that the strings would reach the tuners, which is kind of important. So I had to give up about 1.5 inches of scale length, which I'm hoping doesn't make the positioning too hard to use for Tim, because it does mean that the fret positions are going to be a little bit closer in, but we'll see. So, all right. I had to move. Yeah, okay. Part of the moving the tailpiece also meant that I had to extend the ground wire that goes to the tailpiece because it's coming through a little bit further south, and which meant that I had a bit of exposed wire and obviously rough looking place where the paint didn't go over. So I didn't have the right paint to make that work. So ended up cutting apart the bag from an old broken set of bagpipes that somebody gave me, and I didn't sacrifice an instrument. They were really beyond repair. The leather part of the bag is all dry rotted, and it's like just there's no flex in it whatsoever. So I cut up the plaid, this old faded plaid that was covering the bagpipes, and used some of the fabric on this just to give it a piece of kind of Celtic flair, just discreetly, and also to cover up the yucky bare wire. Well, not a bare wire, but the ground wire that's just running a couple inches just out there in the open. Well, covered that up. So plaid covers a myriad of sins. Let's see. Now, I tried to use the old string guide and ended up not using it. It's a cool little metal piece that I fabricated to hold the strings down a little bit on the previous headstock, and it didn't end up doing anything but providing a pinch point that made the tuners have to work extra hard, which is part of probably what messed up the previous tuners. And so I ended up not using that, but I did cut a groove for the E string to ride in over the front heel on the headstock, and that seems to be working just fine. I stuck a little DS Drunken Shrubbery button on the headstock just because I had it laying around. Thought it'd be a little cool touch. I put the crappy old tuners on the cigar box base. They weren't a very good fit, and like I said, one of them doesn't work, so I don't need to keep them on there. I got to replace the tuners on the cigar box base so that they actually work, because it's a cool little bass and I need to make sure that it works. Not this weekend though. So, while I was in the process of fixing the bass, I decided I needed a new display rack for my flutes and tin whistles and stuff, and so that's what I started. Drilled holes in the base and top piece. It's kind of the same principle as a test tube holder or a pipe holder for anybody that smokes pipes. Just a little two-part rack that things fit down into for display. And after I drilled the holes in there, well, you can tell I used some of the scrap left over from when I built Lucky, that green Goldie guitar that was sort of a Telecaster hybrid. So I added to the bass just for additional height and weight, because obviously a lot of flutes and stuff are going in it, and if it was top heavy it would fall over. You don't want that. So then final touch, I glued fabric on the bass and dowels, and I added these little metal finials, little drawer handles that I had laying around. And final touch on the bass, I put the little MDW Guitar Works logo on the back of the bass. So that was the process of replacing the headstock and the tuners on the bass and my little flute rack. Okay, so that was the process, and this is the end result. I got it hanging on the strap here because I forgot to grab the foot pegs that go with it. I think I prefer using the strap anyway because it keeps it in the right position whether you're standing up or sitting down. But it sounds pretty good, and it plays nice. Still got a little room. I could probably come down a little on the action, but it's not uncomfortable to play, and it's in the zone where it gets just a touch of that fretless buzz. So I think I'm satisfied with it. I can make adjustments if Tim plays it and decides that he wants a little tweak to it. I'll work it out. This is a work in progress, like all of my creations, and this is one of them. And it's kind of cool to sort of make it a collaborative process, since I'm not the one that plays this as much. It's in my band, and my bandmate that's given me the feedback on what it needs, and so we'll see how it goes. I think I'll include this strap when I give it back to Tim, see if he likes it. So anyway, that was the process of replacing the headstock and tuners and getting this thing back up on its feet. So don't forget to click like and subscribe on the videos and all that good stuff. I don't know, share it with your friends, whatever. If you got other weirdos that you know that might like this type of stuff, hey, what the hell. So anyway, this is Matt again from MDW Guitar Works, and I'll be talking at you soon. Bye now.